Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. I'm Drew Scanlon. Joining me, Danny O'Dwyer. How are you, Danny?
I'm very good, Drew. It's what's going on here? Formula One is over. Why are we talking? We don't usually talk, Drew, unless Formula One's involved. Why? What's happening? What's going on? It's the off season. I'm bathing.
I just really. Wait, are you implying that you have gone an entire F1 season without bathing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, wait, you don't?
I just couldn't stand not talking to my best Formula One friends. So I've also invited Rob Zachney. How are you, Rob?
Not too bad. We are recording, right? Did I see the numbers flash? I see the record thing going.
Yeah, we've only done this for almost 10 years. So
we need we're not allowed to talk to each other unless there's at least one Patreon in the room.
That's right. There is I see the red light flashing. Yeah. Is this episode just going to be us like completely crashing at the end here, just like completely out of energy after the longest F1 season in history?
Yeah, like the Sunday morning after a Saturday night bender, just gonna just wander in the streets in a fugue state.
Yeah.
A little bit, I guess. We did this one just to kind of throw it together to have an opportunity to talk about the season that was and do some emails, but it does turn out that we have some news to cover as well.
We do. If you're new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. And if you are new to Formula One itself, we recommend listening to our preseason primer episode that happened all the way back in, February of this year? You've got a whole season to catch up on if this is your first episode. So you can go back and listen to that, episode 216. It assumes no prior F1 knowledge and explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So you can go listen to that and then the entire season. So
yeah, who knows who'll win?
You
can't, Alonso starts out well, so maybe he makes good. How many races is he going to win this year? The possibilities are endless.
Also, the show would not be possible without our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1. Every month we release an ad-free version of the podcast, along with bonus. Actually, every week we release that. I got to rewrite this for 2024. But you also get bonus podcasts and videos that are exclusive to our patrons that cover racing documentaries and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 or click the link in the show notes. What's been going on this month, Danny?
Last month, just passed, we did Brawn, the Impossible Formula One story, starring everyone's favorite Matrix man, Keanu Reeves. This month, we're recording it tomorrow, I believe, our review of Gran Turismo. Have you guys watched Gran Turismo yet?
You bet.
I have a half hour to go.
Okay, cool. Bought that 4K. How can you put it down with a half hour to go? You're telling me they got to the 24 hours of Le Mans and spoilers. They get to the 24 hours of Le Mans and you're like, I think I'll leave it here.
It's like Hemingway, you got to leave the sentence half written so that you know where to pick it up when you come back.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's a little bit of insight into what we think about that one. I'm sure we'll chew into it more tomorrow, and that will be up for patrons. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe by the weekend, maybe next week. We'll get it up in due course. And a massive thanks to all of our incredible title sponsors who have stayed with us for the entire year. A bunch of people. We actually I think we might have one new person this week as well, which is amazing. Thank you all so much for slapping your beautiful names as stickers all over our car. Those names, of course, one more time for the year are F1 Gamer Dad. And it's not me, I swear. Mojo Nixon Gaming, Get Rich or Die Ryan, Agave ATX, Cypress Training, Turf SES, at Team Blackjack, Michael Maves, Gordy's Army, at Talking Autos, Olivia Evans, TelemetryDoc.com, FTC, Drew Stewart, Bailey Foote, Abdallah Al-Thani, Jason Chadwick, Abraham Getchell, The Space Above Us podcast, Llama Magic, Snigs, Alex Couchet, Max Voltaire, Circuit Demon, Troy Stammer, William Rumpf, Irvine Clinical Research. So that makes me laugh. Lachlan the Madden Man, and our good friend Jason Kelly. Thank you all for covering our beautiful car. Every year we should get like a little Matchbox car done with tiny little stickers of all the.
They have to be so small.
I actually made me and my daughter got into, my kid is 5 now, and she started like to do Lego sets a little bit, and then I started to do Lego sets because I was like, and we did like a little daddy daughter, we make Lego beside each other thing, and I got the Mercedes Lego set, which has I think their car from 2 years ago, and also the safety car.
Oh wow!
As in like a double set, so I have both of those randomly set. I did them all in one night. It was absolute blast. Good stuff.
Wow.
Lego,
Brag
man.
much?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can play with children's toys. Yeah, eat it.
That's awesome. All right. Well, as you mentioned, Danny, we have kind of an unscripted episode. We just figured, with all a lot of prep goes into those post-race episodes.
Yes.
And we kind of just wanted to chill out and talk about the season that was, and kind of drift into that long winter night. And before we do that, though, news just keeps breaking.
Yes.
So why don't you kick things off here, Danny, with what we can look forward to in 2024?
Yes. First of all, sprint races. Isn't that what we're going to talk about first?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yes, it was announced that China and Miami will be joining the sprint schedule for 2024. This came during an F1 Commission meeting in November. It was agreed that the Sporting Advisory Committee will discuss potential changes to that sprint format, but that proposal will not be presented to the F1 Commission for consideration until their first meeting in 2024. So we're not sure what sprint is going to be. Sprint could be anything. I mean, it couldn't be anything. It's definitely going to be a shorter race.
It's a foot race now.
It's a literal sprint. They're going to do the NFL Combine. Who'd win? Who'd be the fastest, do you think, if they all ran for it?
Albon.
Yeah, that's a good check.
He's tall.
He's not like Ricardo. I think Ricardo carries a lot of like weight with him. Like he's bigger. Like Albon's got like a sprint. Albon's got like a marathon body.
Yeah.
Alonso would struggle.
Yes.
I think those knees have seen some shit. So to, I guess, go in the order that we will see them. China will be the first one, as long as that race is on. It's the first time
Yeah.
They are actually in the middle of is it a flu outbreak or something? They're having something's going on. It's not COVID apparently, but hey, they said that last time. But that'll be April 20, and the 19th to 21st is when that one is on. Miami is then May 3rd to 5th. Then we are at the Oostenrijk Ring, Red Bull Ring, which will become the first 3-time host of the sprint on June 20th to 30th. Circuit of the Americas will run its second sprint race in October. And then Brazil at the start of November and Qatar at the end of November will be the other ones. So that's a bunch. That's 6 different sprint races to enjoy next year. But again, what the sprint is, who knows?
6 opportunities for everyone to come away being like, don't worry, fans, we're going to fix that sprint format. I think, obviously, we know we need to rework it. We're on it.
We got one good one this year. What was it? I forget. There was one race. It might have been Brazil, was it? No. There was one race we had where the sprint was definitely better than the main race. I forget. There was maybe 2 of them. I forget. Yeah, but
I feel like the Qatar one was all right. But
that's a good shout, yeah.
That ended up just being an interesting race weekend in part. Yeah.
What we will explore later when we're talking about reminiscing about the season is that this season was very inconsistent. There was times where some drivers were doing really well and then doing really badly. There were some races that were really boring and then really good ones. There were some times where teams were doing great or badly, and then the other end of the season they were doing the complete opposite. So it's all higgledy-piggledy. So if you can't remember much about this year, don't blame yourself. It was a little bit all over the place.
Well, F1 knows what the people like. So does Williams. And they like people from Florida because they have retained Logan Sargent.
GTA 6, dude. Florida's never been hotter.
For the 2024 season, that means the F1 grid is the same for 2024 as it was for 2023. I don't know that that's ever happened while I've been watching it.
well, not the start of 2023, because we had our good old friend Nick DeVries in there
It's
at the
true.
start of the year.
Oh, you're right, Danny.
So it has slightly changed, shall we say? But yeah,
So-
that's a good point.
I'll say this: like, I think this proves James Vowles is maybe the most on the level team principal I've ever seen. Because given the circumstance, any other team principal is like, yeah, Logan has our full support. He's dead. He's dead. Sorry, they're gonna take him
Kiss
out
of
behind
death.
the trailer. They're gonna shoot him. But here, when James Vowles was like, we're pleased with the progress, he's seeing, we have to wait to make our decision. All of that apparently did mean we are going to analyze the data and make our decision about him. And then they decided to keep him, which I think tells us a lot about Williams and how Vowles operate. But I'm curious, temperature check. How do we feel about Logan getting a mulligan?
It's odd, right? Because I mean, we'll get into this a little bit later when we sort of run down how the teams and drivers did. It's hard to they had a better car this year, but I also think Albon got more out of it than just about anyone would have. Albon had a fantastic year.
Mhm.
So I think it's unfair to compare him right next to him. And in a way, when Albon is your teammate, I feel like perhaps you get a bit more time, because that's the time that Albon didn't get. You know what I mean? Like, patience. Maybe Albon is a good case for having patience with rookie drivers. I think I'm glad he's getting another go of it. I always hate when the sink or swim attitude and all that, but obviously I think he really has to do it next year. Like, he has to really prove himself next year if he wants to keep it again. It wasn't a great season for him, but that's what rookie seasons are for sometimes.
Yeah, or at least show some marked improvement, right? Like, I hesitate to I give a lot of benefit of the doubt to situations like this, because you never know if they're on the same car development schedule, like who's got the upgrades, who doesn't, and when there is a disparity, especially in experience, you're comparing those two people a lot, it makes it difficult to compare one person with themselves to see whether they are improving. And of course, there's so much data that we as the audience don't get to see. So I don't. It's tough for us to say oh, it's a bad move, especially when, as this Autosport article points out, there's not a lot of uh, people ready to go in the wings. I mean, there's Teo Pocher, who he won the F2 championship this season, right?
Lawson as well, but he's probably tied up with Red Bull, right?
Yes.
Which is another point that article makes, right? That
a
lot of the people they could theoretically get, if they pan out even a little bit, they're going to lose them fast to the teams that actually have vested interest in those talents.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned before, Williams has already sunk a lot of time and money and effort and energy into Logan Sargent, because he came from their F1 Academy. So I think it makes a lot of sense. It's not maybe as exciting as we want, but I am curious to see how he'll do next year.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know, I'll have to think about recent years, I guess, but Russell was obviously a good young driver that they had in there for a while. But Williams was, for a long time in my head, somewhere where veterans went to end their careers, and I don't think it benefited them. And I think in many ways, just having this younger, driver, who was there before? Stroll, Sirotkin, but then we're into the Massa.
Valtteri was there too.
Bottas was there, yeah.
Mhm.
Of
It
course.
was, I think it was half that. Veterans washed up there to see things out,
Right.
and then people on the rise passed through before winding their way to Mercedes, honestly.
Right.
But yeah, I think Williams has been in a tough spot with the driver, their ability to hang on to drivers and when they tend to get hold of them. But yeah, I find it really interesting. I think there was always sort of a I think Williams was fairly clear about this from the start, that everyone knew Sargent was going to be a bit rough because like there was a sense that he'd missed a year of development. They'd rushed him forward into F1.
Whereas Piastri had a much more sort of, he was a reserve driver for Alpine. He he sort of had a much more, because he had such a great year comparatively. But I think you're right. Like he had
this was much more of a, hey kid, here's an F1 car. Good luck.
Yeah.
And I think he had like the earlier parts of the year were really rough, but I do kind of feel like over time, like what was it? At Zandvoort, he wrecks the car, but before he wrecks the car, he's kind of on it, right? He has one of those things where like he was right on the limit and he's like setting competitive times, and then he loses it a bit at a track where to lose it a bit means the car is going to be a write-off. And I feel like since then, it got a lot cleaner. The performance gap narrowed a bit, and that tended to be overshadowed because we had so many bad tracks for Williams that like by the end Sargent wasn't doing anything impressive because Albon wasn't doing anything impressive. They were kind of lumbering around back there. He did blow qualifying at the last race, but yeah, I find it an interesting approach they're taking, which is that the first year was an investment, and we are going to see what seasoning can do with this guy. Because if you think about the history of F1 and a lot of motorsports, prior to this era of like trying to find your wunderkind and just like lock them in at age like 17, 18 to a 5-year contract, you kind of didn't expect people to really like pull their act together until like their mid-20s in F1. And you compare it to other sports, right? Like, basketball players get drafted and can be in the league for like 5-6 years before you're really like saying like, all right, now it's time to show out. And so I do think this is an interesting like experiment in developing a driver in an era where it's been very much focused on like, hey, your development happened up through F2. Now you just need to be ready to go.
Who knows? Maybe he will be the first. There's been one Williams winner in the past 20 years. Could you remember who it was?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Pastor
Maldonado, Spain, 2012, I think.
Was that when they were running in Valencia? The little like
it's Barcelona
course with the
bridge? The street circuit.
Yeah.
No, so actually no. Maybe you're right. Was it? No, it was Spain. Was it then? God, in my head it wasn't Valencia. Let me look it up. I think it was Barcelona.
While you're doing that, I just to update everyone here, 2024 could be a bloodbath because the only drivers that are secured past 2024 are the McLaren drivers, the Mercedes drivers, and Max Verstappen.
There you go.
Everybody else their contract ends at least or in 2024, or it's nebulous.
Wow. A real lemon dance. It was Spain. It was Barcelona that Pastor did it. And he won that race. He did it. Wasn't gifted to him.
Speaking of gifting things from one to the other.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is an odd story. I don't know, like this one popped up today, and then there's been a lot on it that I'm like, there's a lot of moving parts to it, so I fear I'm going to mangle the story a little bit. So the top headline and the organizations that who's doing what is going to be important here. FIA opened a compliance investigation into, I don't know if they formally announced this or if it was leaked, but they launched an investigation into conflict of interest issues around Toto and Susie Wolff, because they both they've both been a big deal in motorsports for years, but right now they wear two very different hats.
Husband and wife, we should add.
Right, and
wouldn't it be wild if there was two people called Wolf who weren't related in Formula One? That'd be amazing.
Like Babs and Buster Bunny in Tiny Toons. So Susie Wolff is head of F1 Academy, and obviously Toto runs Mercedes. But there were complaints raised by other teams that something something was said that intimated that Toto Wolff might be getting access to FOM information, F1 management, which is like the commercial rights holder, the operator of F1, effectively. Via Susie Wolf's role working on F1 Academy, which is sort of a high level thing with FOM, she would be leaking information to her husband about FOM matters and deliberations that other team principals do not have access to. The FIA is investigating this. FIA being the international, advocacy organization, but for our purposes, the sporting regulatory body of motorsports, and a body that has a fractious history with the F1 teams. And we appear to be in a phase where that fractiousness is currently waxing.
I mean, go see our Braun GP podcast.
Oh, yeah. Right, yeah, exactly. If you want some priors on this one.
Yeah.
So this comes out, FIA is investigating this, and right away, my reaction when I saw this was like, I don't know if this is going to be a good look for anyone, because it seems really petty to be like, Toto's getting access to FOM information about F1 Academy. It's not, I don't know what high level stuff is going, I just don't know how valuable or important and relevant to F1 team's operations is going to be stuff that Susie Wolff is dealing with through F1 Academy at this juncture. But either way, it kind of seemed like a weird, let's mess with someone's family. Let's mess with our peers' family.
It definitely makes a bunch of salacious sounding headlines. I'll say that. It's a lot of Toto and Susie Wolff under investigation. And you're like, what's going on here?
I do see the flip side too. It is unusual and kind of weird that you have a husband and wife team. Look, I worked for husband and wife teams. Hasn't been great. Right. Weird dynamics. Don't recommend it. But at the same time, it seems a little bit loaded, and Susie's been around motorsports forever. She's been there, as long as, and in more, frankly, more legit capacities than Toto has been for ages. So anyway, FOM came out and said they hadn't heard anything about this, that the FIA didn't give them a heads up that this was in play, and so they came out and kind of blasted the FIA. They said, we note the public statement made by the FIA was not shared with us in advance. We have complete confidence the allegations are wrong. We have robust processes and procedures that ensure the segregation of information and responsibilities in the event of any potential conflict of interest. We're confident no member of our team has made any unauthorized disclosure to a team principal, and we caution anyone against making imprudent and serious allegations without substance. So, FI and FOM now have yet another thing where they've kind of they're needling each other. And then, Susie Wolff, obviously, understandably, not happy about this. Notes that, this feels like a misogynistic attack on her. And, that this is sort of a personal thing, coming after her specifically, because of both, her gender and her relationship. So, yeah, this has all the makings of kind of, in terms of what the actual breach is, real tempest in the teapot energy, I think, in terms of what is actually at stake. But in terms of the ability to generate a tremendous amount of ugliness and bad blood, it feels like a real hornet's nest got kicked here.
We'll see. I also feel like over the next couple of days, this thing might just die down entirely, or might turn into something very ugly. It sort of just has only just broken, so we're kind of in the wake of that initial stuff. But yeah, it does seem like just a bad look for everyone, and also kind of, I just wonder what evidence there is, or because if it's a very he said she, well, it's not even that, but I don't know what it is, but it's just very, I wonder what brought it up to this level. I guess
maybe they're one of those couples that uses a shared Gmail account.
It's like the Hillary Clinton emails. They have a fucking server in their basement that has both FOM and FIA emails on it, and neither the twain should meet. Yeah, we'll have to.
Toto looks like a real home network administrator.
You know what? I bet one of them has that Valtteri Bottas calendar on their hard drive.
That's true.
That's
Rob,
probably what it was.
Please. Let's check in with.
Yeah.
Said
so.
Bottas.
This isn't news to me because I follow all these guys on Instagram, and Instagram, once it has a little sense of like what you like, it just gives you more of it. Like look at a couple poodle photos, you're gonna be seeing poodles all the time. But you keep tabs on Valtteri Bottas. One day you're sort of lying there half awake and you see him at a gallery, an art gallery, unveiling a painting, and it's a painting of him bare ass naked next to a bicycle by a lake.
He puts the ass in Bottas, if you will.
So this is what all those things were promoting, is the fact that he put out a nude calendar featuring his rear end across the 12 months of the year.
Terrific.
To raise health for Movember, which is the prostate cancer charity.
Which, in fairness to him, he's been rocking that mustache, I think, for the entire year. I think, am I right in that he had that mustache all
I feel like
round?
It showed up a couple years ago. I feel like he's been... Yeah.
He used to do it like the way Ricardo does the handlebars in Austin. He used to turn up, maybe it was in November, I have no idea. But I feel like his commitment to it in recent years has been, or maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like he's really stuck to it of late.
Yes, and the other thing he's stuck to is risque photos of him working out in the wilderness. Like
awesome.
He left Mercedes, and
this is why
he just his Insta just started to like fill up with photos of like here I am skinny dipping in an alpine stream.
Beautiful.
And it's like, man, that guy seems so happy and so secure. Good for him.
He's chilling. We'll talk about how much he's chilling later on when we talk about his performance in 2024. But yeah, fair play to him. $150,000 a race. It's pretty good. 75,000 a cheek. I like
it. Unfortunately, they do appear sold out.
We could have raised more.
I know. The article says that they are printing more, or they have printed more. I'm not sure, but they would be wise to. It's great. I'll admit, I have some F1 buddies. I bought all of them calendars.
Oh, did you really? Terrific.
Yes. They arrived a few days ago.
Beautiful.
They're tremendous.
Excellent. Love it. When's mine arriving then? It's okay. I forgot to send you one too. I'll just send you a picture of my ass. How about
that?
Okay.
Okay. We'll exchange.
Yeah. Mine's gonna need a bigger piece of paper than yours, probably.
All right. Well, that is it for news. We're going to take a break, and then we will be back with some talking points. And we're back with the talking points. I feel like this is a mid-90s political show.
Let's talk about some points, shall we, gentlemen? So, I mean, I took a step back last week and kind of thought like, okay, what happened last year? And I went back and watched a bunch of race replays. I read a lot of articles. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and I just basically created this big document of like, here's all the stuff that went on. And then I sort of filtered it down to a couple of things that I thought would be easy for people to, without having to do a bunch of research, some easy stuff to just sort of summarize the year that was in it. And also, just give us an excuse to sort of ramble a little bit about the year that was 2023, because it was kind of a strange year. Like there was a lot of races, the most races ever. We had what would on the face of it seem like a boring season, at least for the championship, or another way of looking at it was the most dominant Formula One display that anyone's ever done. There was some movement with drivers, but not all that much at the start of the season. And then we got a weird one in the middle, which came out of nowhere. And then we're also in this sort of post Drive to Survive F1 boom hangover when the demands of the viewing audience is probably higher than ever before. And then this year was one that felt like it was falling short a lot, or at least had a lot of pressure on it. Before we get into some of the sort of stuff that I've collated here, I'm just interested in what you guys kind of feel. It's been a week since we talked last about any specific race. What do you guys think, Drew? What do you think, first of all, about like what 2023 was? Like, what are you going to remember about this year?
I mean, I'm going to remember Max's dominance. I think that is just the specter that hangs over it, hanged over it the entire time. Coming off of 2022, and it never really like that capped this season's potential for me. There was still some fun to be had, but I think that's the overall narrative.
All right, similar for you, Rob, or?
I mean, yeah, like there's no, like, this is one of those things where the better podcast fodder is like, actually, I have something, but no, like, I think in 3 or 4 years, this is going to be one of those years that you remember. It's like, what happened that year? Max and Red Bull won everything. It's going to be like, what was it? Like Ferrari 2004? Right. Which used to be the benchmark, I think, for like, oh yeah, remember that season where like Ferrari basically just like ran the table and Schumacher was untouchable, and that doesn't look anything like the level of like dominance we saw this year. Like it is ridiculous the degree to which like every race was on lock. I will say this, like I think part of it is, Max was incredibly consistent and like made no real mistakes this year. Also, a team has never put together a car like that is that fast and like this reliable. Like nothing ever went wrong on his car. Which is always partly testament to like how a driver is driving it, and it's partly testament to how it's being assembled. So like the dominance really is impressive, as kind of dull as it got. However, I do find myself wondering if one reason you don't see this to this extent is the cost cap means that teams have an incentive to decide when they're going to cut bait on a year.
Right.
And they will do so early to start trying to make up like with investment down the road. And I do wonder if that is one reason like why this period of dominance might feel a little bit like more of a foregone conclusion, because it wasn't too long into this where like teams are not going to pull out all the stops to try and like change the fortunes of this championship. They're going to start talking about like, well, maybe next year. Mercedes was talking about next year after one race.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got 2025. That's a regulation change. I gotta believe that. I mean, teams are going to try their best in 2024, but does the fact that it is such an upset after that year move that date where they cut and run closer?
It's 2026 that's the big one, right? Like, isn't that what
did they move it?
And new engine?
I think so.
I know the new engine is 26.
Okay, never mind then.
Well, no, I mean, like,
I kind of hope not. Yeah, because
I'm hoping we don't have 2 years.
Well, I hope it's. Well, if I feel like if it's one, it's. Yeah, I do worry that I don't want another. I don't want a fallow year. You know what I mean? Right. A couple of stats on Verstappen's dominance, and I think it's weird. It's like a double-edged sword. It's like he was so dominant, and to your point, Rob. It's he did like it was a fantastic drive. He was consistent. I mean, the car is sort of he dominated his teammate, but obviously it sounds like the car has sort of been designed towards Max's driving style and whatnot. But he was consistent throughout it, and every week, even when the championship was done and dusted, he was still fighting for it. And the stats prove it, I guess. He now has more victories than Sebastian Vettel. He won 86.36 of the races this season, which is the highest in any F1 season ever. He won 34 races out of the last 45. He now has here are some other stats, I guess, that he has. He has the win record. He has most consecutive wins, most podiums, the biggest gap to second in a championship, the most points scored in consecutive races, most points in a season. He got 92.7 of all the available points this year.
That
includes getting wins, fastest laps, sprints, all that stuff. Percentage of laps led, he won. Wins from pole. He has the global sort of award, record for that. Races left with winning the title. I think he might have drawn with Mansell on that one. A championship leader for 39 races now in a row. The percentage of points between first and second, he has the longest one there. Longest streak of converting poles to wins as well, with 16. So just absolutely insane. And then Red Bull as a team have only failed to win 6 races during the period of those 45 races, the 34 that he won. So just like the type of, I mean, in a way it's funny because in my head I'm like, I don't know, I think my brain just switched off caring about Red Bull at the start of this year after last year, but it's impressive, but it sucks. That's the problem. Like it's really amazing, and and Max is clearly an incredible driver, but we don't get to see him be an incredible driver because statistics like this, while obviously mirroring his skill and, you know, impossible for most mortals to achieve stuff like this, they're boring. Like nobody fucking cares. People care when they see all the overtakes he did against Hamilton in the season he won the championship, or like how much he had to fight in those. It's a different type of thing, obviously, and I don't want to downplay it at all. I think it's remarkable what he's done, and he's clearly putting himself in, contention for being one of the legends of the sport, especially this young, early in his career. But it's boring and it sucks, and who cares? You know what I mean?
Well, and also, like, I think it highlights, like, it's been a growing feeling for a while. Just like we've always talked about, the records they're not comparable, right? Like,
right.
Prost and Senna's records and achievements aren't comparable to when we're talking about like Schumacher or Hamilton. Like, it's a different sport. The risks are different. They're not like setting aside just the number of races, like reliability, like everything is so different. And if you look at like Schumacher starting like what for us now is the modern era of F1, it's like F1 goes through now a series of eras where a team and a driver just wreck house year on year on year on year. You know, it was like there's the brief interregnum, and then we get after Schumacher we get years of Red Bull dominance,
right?
Years of Mercedes dominance, and now we are back to years of Red Bull dominance.
No one's making documentaries about those seasons. They're making the documentary about the Brawn season. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And so I think it's one of those things where, we can talk about, it's like the amassing of these impressive stats. After a point, it just kind of becomes meaningless because it's like, yeah, you're great. You're beating all the records that the last guy set after beating all the records that the last guy before him set.
Yeah.
And I think the other part of it is, we talked about like, why did the Mercedes years feel a little bit less grating? In general, there was some sort of sense of a rival, being that internal, where you had Rosberg and Hamilton having a few really knockdown, drag out championship duels. Not just the one that Rosberg nipped out from under him. Like the year before that, they've been going hammer and tongs as well.
Hey, even Bottas, even though he never got close to him once all the points were counted at the end of a season,
got way more of a sniff of it than Checo.
Absolutely.
But like, yeah, you just don't have a sense of. I think this is where the Schumacher comparison actually becomes really apt, because there's just been no internal threat whatsoever.
No desire for
it could
it
be
either.
No, and I think it's a little bit like, who knows what Max cares about, but in terms of like, I think it is unfortunate for how he's going to be regarded and how this is going to be remembered, because he's a protagonist without an antagonist. Like, it is just, he went out there, he drove away from everyone like 20 times. That is not compelling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I think sucks for him as well. You know what I mean? That like, to have done all of this and have such an amazing year, and I'm sure Verstappen fans probably have really enjoyed it, and I think I'm glad for them, and I think that's really great. But it doesn't like give you goosebumps. You know what I mean? Like, those, in a way, the statistics are sort of like this cold reality check. That, you know what I mean? That like,
so many times when David Croft was like, and he's won the most races ever. Like,
Yeah.
are we supposed to be excited about that?
Yeah.
Or is it just an indicator of kind of what we're watching here? Like,
it just reminds me of
on
Schumacher
some level,
years.
I am
like,
really, it's amazing to be watching this, right?
Hmm.
He's one of the greats of all time. The same thing when we were watching Hamilton, right? It's like, I didn't watch the Schumacher era. People talk about him like he is a god, right?
But they also talk about like
Right. So
in the same way people were bored to tears of it.
Yes.
Like I think more people dropped off Formula One in those years probably than just about any other year I can imagine, because it just became a procession. So it's the same, I guess. It's like there's a cost, I guess, to this type of dominance, and it's that people get bored and they move on, and that's not good for anyone, So, and it sucks. It sucks to talk about his success and his achievements with this big qualifier, but I think given where we are in F1 sort of like recent boom, it must make everyone feel a little bit uneasy that we had a season like this that,
I mean, that's the nature of it being a sport and
Right.
not a TV show.
Yeah. Vince McMahon was in charge, it'd be different.
Look, man, I'm here in New England. I lived in New England throughout the entire New England Patriots dynasty. Let me tell you, it was not the most enjoyable thing in the world to watch. And to a degree, even that fandom, it could only be disappointed, but it wasn't necessarily the most fun experience ever. The nature of these things, dynasties like this are kind of weird to see whenever something is this dominant. People can enjoy the wins, but also there gets this sense of kind of winning is the only thing now, because there's not much of a contest to it. Let's refine ourselves.
And I feel like in 1v1 team sports or 1v1 anything, right? You always have that thing where on any day, anyone might snatch it. And, you get it in tennis, you get it in golf, you get it in football, you get upsets, right? Everyone loves the underdog. In a cup competition in soccer, you're always watching that League Two team. Let's see if they're able to beat the Premier League team. And there's all that pressure there. And you just don't get that in racing like that. You know what I mean?
You do, but it is a different. The calculation's different because you've got Max could always crash out, but that's or you go to a track where the car just isn't strong,
right? But it's
you can get a surprise there, or you have a wet race or something. It can happen, but I feel like for some reason it just feels like a longer shot.
Yeah, or the feeling of triumph for the other team or person. It's not like if the Bears bet Tom Brady's Patriots, right? It's not the same as when Sainz won Singapore this year. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't have this isolated. You can have these isolated sporting moments that feel like triumphs from underdogs, but you don't. The only way you get that in F1 is if you have a situation where a rookie or a younger driver who's never won anything, or Alonso. If Alonso had won a race this year, that would have been one of those feelings, but we didn't even get that, so I think it's a problem that's motorsport sort of suffers a bit, is that even when somebody like Verstappen has a bit of bad luck or the wrong pit strategy or a safety car at the wrong time, it doesn't even feel that great. It feels a little bit cool to see someone else win, but it's not the same as, in some other sports. You don't get that little micro excitement, I don't know.
Well, let's talk about some excitement, Danny, or some other things that, when we've got the one big thing that we just try to ignore, what else are we looking at?
Well, the other thing that happened this year that was the big sort of, a lot of headlines, a lot of chat about, was what happened with Nick de Vries. Obviously, him sort of, it was a bit of a shock that he lost his seat, but also not a shock. It seemed like it was on the cards, but then when it happened, it seemed to happen quite quickly. And then Danny Ricciardo coming into the sport was obviously a huge headline, given what he had sort of, him losing his seat at the start of this year. And then him getting injured and having Liam Lawson come in. There was it was, in a year in which we didn't have all that much drama with new drivers, or, this driver really needs to buck it up or they're going to lose their seat, I guess, except for de Vries. this was kind of the only bit of that action we got this year, and it was very dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about driver seat swaps is like, or at least for me, I really feel for the guys when that stuff happens, but it is like really exciting and a fun shakeup. And yeah, it's a season that needed it, and so I'm glad that rotating seat at AlphaTauri was there to keep us entertained. And it's fun to see how they do, right? When you just plop a driver in there.
It's, I guess I feel bad for DeVries though, because like that car was such a dog. like that car was bad, and yes, he was bad in it, but I still contend like the things that were happening to him all pointed to like things that appear to be deeper issues with the car. I'm very curious, like if we ever get the full story on this, like why was there so little vote of confidence coming into this? Like they were clearly not bought in on DeVries. Like this was we're putting him in this car, we're gonna give it a shot, but like the leash was short for where he started. And the other part of this is I really, I was talking about earlier being kind of amazed that James Vowles appears to have been on the level, having that level of patience for Logan Sargent. I really didn't think that Red Bull were genuinely invested in Daniel Ricciardo. Like I thought the whole like reserve driver thing, like re-signing him, I thought it was a weird like, we like the guy, it's good. Yeah, it's good. We'll get good press. He's got that Red Bull athlete thing going. Like Daniel Ricciardo, long after his results have really stopped being top of the table, is still like a compelling figure in a field that sometimes is a bit starved for personality and extroversion. And so I really didn't think that when they sort of brought him back into the fold, that there was an actual roadmap and intention to get him back in a Red Bull race seat.
Yeah, it's it seemed to be the only answer though once DeVries was sort of out. I do wonder if some of DeVries's, he came in with such confidence. I remember that passing remark at the end of that Drive to Survive season when he was like, "I'm going to come and I'm going to like dominate, Sonoda basically." And
that episode is so funny in retrospect.
I know. I do wonder if the fact that he's 28, he sort of had a bit more of a career and hadn't really maybe sort of bettered himself at a rate at which they sort of expect of some of these younger fellas now.
Well, yeah, I mean, he won the Formula 2 championship. He won a Formula E championship.
Right.
And yeah, he's 28, comes in and doesn't, burn it up. That I think is maybe the most, the clearest example of maybe why.
Yeah, maybe if they see something in him, maybe his mentality or the way he's attacking the training or whatever it is, maybe if they see it in somebody who's that older, they're like, oh, we can't teach an old dog new tricks. I have no idea.
Yeah, ancient 28-year-old.
Helmut Marko finishing school won't work. Yeah, exactly. Let's have a little quick. First of all, actually, we're talking about the popularity. I want to look at some figures that I found here. Viewership from 2020 was about 87.65 million per race, I believe. No, that can't be right. That must be in total. Was 70 million this year, so it is down a bit. Average.
I think that's probably average viewership.
I think that's average viewership
per race.
Yes, per race. Yeah. And then average attendance per race was actually higher, and this might have something to do with just them sort of going to places that
sprints, Danny,
they can fill up. Sure, maybe sprints. Maybe the fact that China wasn't on the calendar for 2 years in a row
right.
helped this out. But it's up to 300,000 people. In 2017, it was about 203,000. In 2000 and
which those numbers are weird, right? Because that is like that is for the weekend, and you can count multiple times.
Yes,
because you could go to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that's 3.
Yeah, fair. But in any case, if they do it
that's still
consistently year on year,
yeah.
you're still talking about like a 50% increase basically YOY on or since 2019. The COVID years obviously are in there in the middle as well, so maybe they create like an artificial bump when people can finally leave their goddamn houses again. Let's do a quick little rundown of the teams before we move on out of this. how about we divvy these up a little bit? How about we just sort of like, if anyone wants to jump in and take one of these themselves, I'll do Alfa Romeo just for fun because they're such a weird little situation. I think Joe had a bad year. I don't think it was particularly impressive, and I think Bottas is him and Magnussen, I feel like, are a little bit in their Kimi Räikkönen last year's, where they're just kind of chilling a bit, which I get. So I don't know how they should feel about this year at all. And also they're doing the Sauber thing next year, right? So I don't know if there's much of a shakeup going on there with the car, but I don't know. I think of all the teams, they seem like one of the ones that's most lost because I think Joe needs to maybe kick it up a gear. Like he should be trying to beat Bottas if Bottas is at this stage of his career.
This is Sauber energy, man. Like this is the thing. Like if you took the Alfa Romeo of it out, you're like, oh yeah, that's Sauber.
Yeah.
And I
old
feel
guy
like that's
and a young.
Yeah, that's kind of what's
maybe.
in play here. And like, man, that car kind of sucks, and they're just kind of running around and not really accomplishing a lot. And I think it's made weirder by the fact that I think we had greater expectations of this team back when they were Alfa Romeo, and we have greater expectations of it for whenever Audi comes in and whenever Audi is willing to start admitting that, like, you actually start publicizing the fact that they're like committed to this relationship. But yeah, it's like, I think it's this weird place because this team is just kind of in this weird, like, gulch between the Alfa Romeo era and then what promises to be a much more well-heeled era under Audi. But for now, they look like a backmarker team in some ways because historically they have been a backmarker team.
AlphaTauri on the other side. How do we feel about them, Drew? Any hard thoughts about those guys?
Yeah, we kind of talked about their second seat, but I think their first seat, Tsunoda. I think he has only gotten stronger as the years have gone by. He to think of him as like the old hand at this team is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But maybe it shouldn't be because I don't know. I'm not looking at data here, but he seemed to me just emotionally consistent.
Alpine, I feel like, are one of the hardest ones to pin down.
They never know what to think of this team. Whether it's Renault or Lotus or Alpine, it's always a mystery to me.
And they're just kind of swimming around between 10th and 12th, kind of out there a little bit. They feel like they
But then Gasly's up there in fourth for the whole race, right? Like it's confounding.
And Ocon had a decent season, I would say, as well. Like neither of them, I don't think, set it on fire. I would put them on the positive end of the middle, but like they didn't have a bad year, but I don't know. I guess it's just,
which is funny because Aston Martin, I think I would say emotionally, I would put them at the back of the middle, but they I think finished with more points.
But that's such a Jekyll and Hyde year, right? Because like obviously Alonso had a fantastic start, right? He had like 6 podiums this year, I think. He was second multiple times, and then his teammate unfortunately had a sort of a rotten middle period, but then he actually ended up finishing the season pretty well, his last 3 or 4 races. And then sort of if we stick McLaren in here, they had almost the exact opposite, where McLaren started off and we're in no man's land and we're arguably fighting with the Alpines. And then you had a situation where I think Norris got like 4 or 5 second place positions as well. Like he ended up doing really well, especially in the latter half of the season.
McLaren is like the wildest comeback story of this year, where it was like that car that looked like, oh man, they're just completely lost. This is gonna be a lost season. Norris is gonna be losing his mind, etc. And then they were like, we opened up that wind tunnel, and then that car started getting real good, real fast. They start turning in great results, and like moving to fourth in the championship, and like. Really, if there were another, 10 races left in the season, do we think they stay in fourth, or do we think they might nab third? I think they might. Like they might be able to, close in on that Ferrari. And I think that's where you sort of see. If I'm McLaren, I feel really confident coming out of the season because the ability to rally and like develop and get the car pulled in the right direction over a season is really exciting. Whereas Aston Martin, they can say that like, man, that middle period where like our car sucked and Lance looked like he was criminally incompetent.
Yeah, like done with the
That's
sport.
because we were doing like wild experiments to like try to make next year's car better. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's part of the strategy of like, we're going to go all in now of, we're going to build out that 2024 car. But it looked gnarly.
Yeah.
That was a weird vibe for the season, and you can't sell me on the idea that it was their strategy to make the boss's son look like crap for months.
Well, hey, read this. What do you think then of the McLaren duo? Because you could argue that might be like the strongest pairing on the grid. You could like, I think Ferrari, and we'll get to Mercedes. I think Russell had a pretty rotten year, but Piastri really came good on his rookie season, and Lando this year looked like, you now you're looking at Lando going, could this guy win a championship? Like in the right car? Like they both got a lot. I think they both had a good season. What do you make of it, Rob?
I think that's gonna be a problem.
Okay,
because I think look, it's a good problem to have, but Piastri did have a hell of a rookie season. And there really haven't been many teams that have like two drivers who are actually a number one like talent that can coexist peacefully for very long.
Right.
And I suspect once it is no longer McLaren versus the world, McLaren versus starting on the back foot, I think the odds of that becoming a little bit weird, just in terms of the vibe, are very, very high. And I suspect that sooner than you might think, McLaren's going to have to decide about like which of these guys makes the most sense to commit to, because whoever doesn't feel like they're getting the love, Drew, you're talking about that bloodbath coming up as like contracts are running out. We're due for some retirements. If either one of these guys has the vibe that like, man, I should be winning more races and like team politics, they're privileging the other guy over me. Either of these guys gets that feeling, they're going to be very susceptible to the argument coming from, other teams. Maybe a team like Alpine, for instance, being like, we're designed around you. Don't you want to come here and like have it all be about you?
Did work for Daniel. I think Lando sees that as a cautionary tale, maybe. Let's move on to the two Ferrari cars, I guess. Ferrari and Haas, two teams with Ferrari engines. Both teams that you could argue, definitely in Haas's case, were better on Saturday than Sunday. What did you make of them, Drew? I guess Ferrari and if you want to chat about Haas a little bit too.
I mean, I'm kind of forced to just go off vibes here.
Right.
It's just like what I kind of felt about these teams over the season, but I felt better about Ferrari than I have in a long time, and I think I chalk it up to Fred. Fred seems like a steady hand. I wanted to see what a stable Ferrari can do. And I feel like I'm seeing what that might look like. Haas, oh man, they just they can't get it together. I want to see better performance.
I feel worse for
it's not
Hülkenberg,
fun, right? It's just like you get these exciting Saturdays, and then like, it doesn't really mean anything.
Especially Hülkenberg, who like Magnussen didn't have a great year.
Talk about a comeback story.
Yeah. Magnussen had like the year of a new dad, where maybe he had his eye was in a different direction. His priorities had shifted, perhaps. He was doing all right, but Hülkenberg, amazing comeback story, and some of his qualification was just outrageous. He was getting that car in positions it didn't, but then come Sunday, it was just like a slow death of him getting, eventually overtaken by everyone until he's like sitting in, 16th or something.
And it's how many years of this with Haas where it's like, oh man, they like, maybe they've got it together this year, and then they just like coast backwards over the course of the race. And it's like, it is really dismaying, because I'm like Charlie Brown with the football. every year I have those moments where I'm like, damn, they qualified the shit out of that car. All right, we got a new player at this table. And then it's like, okay, well, we're 5 laps into the stint. They're running 2 seconds off the lead. We've seen this movie before. The way Hulkenberg and Magnussen would just converge in the race, despite Hulkenberg starting from like 8 places out from qualifying. It was
exactly.
Like, man, this car sucks.
It's like, hey, buddy, when they both end up like together at the back of the grid,
which is makes it all the more surprising that like you're telling me Gene Haas wasn't like, oh yeah, Andretti, I'll take your $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. What makes us think that maybe Gene Haas hates the Andrettis?
He very well.
Like there could be some American motorsports beef there. We don't know.
Exactly. Another team with asymmetric drivers, you could argue, is Williams. Alex Albon had
I could argue that
terrific career. Logan
I don't even have to be a debate champion.
No, I guess we did a little bit chat about it earlier. Logan Sargent obviously had a tricky rookie year. Albon really made good, seemed to get that Williams in places that, again, seemed like it wouldn't be in the hands of another driver. I want to talk to you guys about Mercedes, though, our last team here. Last year, Russell really had the best of Hamilton. And this year it seemed to swap the other way again. Lewis was almost Prost-like in his drive. He was not often really racing at the front, but just was able to always accrue like top 5 points. Like he was very good at being up there, getting the points, and obviously it benefited him in the Drivers' Championship. Russell seemed to struggle this year, I felt. What do you guys make of what's going on over at Mercedes?
I mean, I think they struggled a lot with their car, and I don't know. I think at different times one was on top of it or the other was, and it just kind of shook out that I guess the experienced one grappled it better. That's kind of my feeling.
I think there's a little bit of deceptiveness about last year because like Mercedes later kind of confirmed this was the case, which was Hamilton went into skunkworks mode and they began like throughout last year, they began throwing a lot of weird setup stuff and a lot of weird dev work at him to try and like get the team out of the cul-de-sac that they were stuck in, and Russell was just optimizing for race pace, and so was he was optimizing to compete in races, and Hamilton fundamentally wasn't, and so Russell like had this really impressive season where it looked like okay that this might be the next generation in place at Mercedes. I think if I'm a Russell fan, or if I'm Russell, I think there's some things I find alarming about this. One is that with the pressure on a little bit, some of that unflappable cool and poise that we saw in the lowered expectations world of Williams cracked this year. Peevish on the radio, trying to manage from the race seat, but like really trying to do too much, and it's not like he's speaking from the position of moral authority where he's totally nailing it and the team is the one letting him down. Like there were a lot of times where kind of the response could have been to George, like, dude, just drive the car, man. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're concerned about where we're going to place, just like, here's the thought, be faster. The other, like, and I keep coming back to Singapore as just like, that was not a good mistake. No, like there's misfortune and like, stuff happens out on the racetrack. That was not a good mistake to make. But it was, I fear a revealing one, right? Which was like, he had this golden opportunity to compete for this race, but even before that, he had been like losing time to Hamilton, and really the team maybe should have swapped Hamilton around in front because he was able to like hold more pace in that car. And then Russell just tunnel visioned onto the back of Lando's car, lost awareness, and took himself out. That is not the stuff of which champions are made. It could be a major learning moment for him, but like suddenly there's cracks in the facade that I hadn't seen before, but now I find them kind of concerning.
To wrap up our little talking points section here. A couple of races of the year. You mentioned Singapore. Worth bringing that one up. Signs holding off the Mercedes, using Lando Norris as a sort of DRS buffer between them expertly. Signs versus the Red Bulls at Monza. The deluge of rain that came from Zandvoort.
Oh, so good.
God, what a race.
Yeah, absolutely great. And then the surprise of Las Vegas being such an interesting battle on the street there. The temperatures may be favoring the tires and the strategy, and an interesting looking track if nothing else.
I want to give a shout out to Qatar for the FIA mandate that the tires could do no more than 18 laps. So weird.
So strange.
Love
it. Yeah, let's spin the wheel. Let's have a weird rule every race. You know what I mean? Like, put the sprinklers on there too. Yeah, and I guess just to wrap it up, what do you guys, if you had any hope for next year, what would it be? Is there anything? The obvious one to go for, I guess, is that we have a bit more competition at the top of the pack. Is there anything else you guys are interested in, or anything you'd like to see? Any driver you'd like to see make good next year?
I think, most excited to see how Williams does.
Right.
Like, they've been so bad for so long, and they're on the upswing, and they've got the James Vowles energy. It's so curious to see where that goes.
Once again, like, Drew kind of took mine. Like, I'm right there. I'm like, no, but it's true. It's like, they're an interesting story because Vowles the entire year has had this vibe of like, Vowles took over this ramshackle, weird old family business, like, after it had been run by these incompetent bankers for like 2 or 3 years. And now they're starting to look like a race team. You got Albon with his like new lease on life, and really Logan Sargent with an even newer lease on life. They are in a really, really interesting place. So I think that's like my positive like vibe that I want to pick up. I am just so curious what Alpine looks like in the coming years, because just as a program, it seems absolutely foobar over there. And maybe like cleaning Laurent Rossi out of there and Otmar and all that like is all necessary, but just doesn't feel great over there, and the two drivers don't like each other.
And I think next year, especially if we're going to get all this contract malarkey at the end of the year, I think that bodes well for some interesting, inter team battles, as well, as folks really try and make themselves stand out either for the team that they're on or the team that they want to go to. So I'm excited for that, if nothing else, because I think we lacked a lot of that this year. Everyone seemed to be pretty comfortable, and there was just so much weirdness with like which team was in the ascendancy at any one time that it was hard to kind of keep your eye on that. So yeah, and obviously I'm excited for China to come back. That circuit's cool, and glad to have the longest straight in Formula One history back.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Well, let's take it to some emails. shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. Rob Zachney, what do we have?
This one, I don't. It feels so familiar. So maybe I'd marked it off earlier, but if it sounds really familiar as I read it, just let me know.
Okay.
Maybe we read this before and I just didn't mark it correctly. But Chris writes, "It's my first full season watching F1. I wanted to ask: are we experiencing an uncharacteristically civil and incidentless season? Incidents seem few and far between, and all the drivers seem to be extremely friendly with a little butting of heads. Is this typical of a standard F1 season that has Drive to Survive warped me into thinking it would be something like the Real Housewives of Monaco meets Twisted Metal? Or has an uncompetitive season at the top led to less aggressive driving, less hot-headedness on the grid?" Bing! It's that one. I think the minute, like, you also see this anytime like a championship is done and dusted, like people get way more simpatico with each other, people chill out. But in general, when there's a season where, there's always going to be, fights with your teammate, you're always going to be a little insecure about your teammate. But when you got a season where it's like, man, we're not in the championship, hon. We are not racing for wins here. The temperature goes down so much, and it just becomes like a fraternity of drivers that are out there. Unless something really egregious happens on the track, the stakes aren't that high. But the minute you have people fighting for wins, and wins matter a tremendous amount. Forget championship, but like once wins are on the line consistently, at first, people will keep it clean and there'll be good vibes. But if you keep running into each other on the track and fighting for those wins, eventually things will happen that like set people against each other. Like if Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen don't have like completely diverging fortunes, subsequent to like 2019 or whatever.
Yeah.
I think those guys probably hate each other. But it was diffused because Max pulled away and Ferrari kind of entered the wilderness a little bit.
I'd be interested to know if it does feel like we didn't have that many crazy crashes this year. Although I will say that it was Australia this year that they did the standing start and that everyone crashed, right? So, and then they basically said, okay, we're never doing those again, right? There was the whole like, is this sport, is this spectacle argument that we were having after the first race. And, that's where you get a lot of these is, starts of races, and who knows, maybe that also maybe stripped away some of that. We didn't, I don't remember any bad crashes, you know what I mean? Like Alonso in Australia comes to mind, obviously Grosjean in Bahrain or in Qatar. No, Losail, wasn't it that one? Yeah. We had even Russell and Bottas in it was Imola, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's a there has been some of those. I can't quite remember. Lando's one at Vegas was a bit nasty, but thankfully it was okay.
And the Russell Valtteri one is illuminating because like the stakes were who was going to drive that Mercedes the next year.
Yeah, totally.
Like it is the minute like these guys start to fear each other as like, you're the guy keeping me from my dream, be it a race win or whatever. That is where like all this, bromance stuff goes out the window. And we just haven't had that.
Yeah. I take this next one?
Yeah.
Mike writes in, I've pondered what the recent periods of dominance by Red Bull and Mercedes tell us about actual driver skill. When talking about the greatest drivers of all time, we often reference championships won, points, podiums, etc. Are we making the assumption that good drivers always get their chance in a competitive car? What if they don't? I'm not going to claim that Max, Lewis, Michael, and the other multiple-time champions are not great drivers. Instead, I'll ask what driver never had the stars align in terms of getting a seat with the right team at the right time. Hulkenberg seems to drive the Haas beyond its limits in qualifying, but the car just doesn't have the race pace for him to bag too many points. Did Force India or Renault ever really give him a racing car? P.S. Will we ever see Stoffel Van Dorn in F1 seat again? No. We'll say no to that one. He, unfortunately, was not unstoppable. He was quite stoppable, it turns out. This is, I feel like, something that comes up a lot when you talk about F1 is the, it's and in any sport, like, who's Patrick Mahomes right now, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's got an amazing offensive lineman, and his defense, first of all, is incredible on the Chiefs. Are winning so much because of that, and then he's got a good O-line in front of him. So it's like, I'm sure it happens in basketball as well. It definitely happens in soccer. It's never just one person, right? I think there's a fairly people sort of assume that if someone's a diamond, they tend to end up with a good team eventually. Like you don't often have somebody who spent their entire career in the wrong cars. Like nobody's really coming to mind. The only ones that come to mind a little bit are the really great drivers who ended up being number 2 drivers, like Barrichello or Ferrari or something like that. Where you're like in another era, or maybe even in another car against Michael, who maybe, or like Massa when Alonso was number 1. So you get into those situations. Rosberg, I think, was the interesting one of those that came good, which was really interesting. And then it was so hard on him that he just pieced out. He was like, well, that was the worst year of my life. I'm done with F1. I'll become a YouTuber. Liam Lawson, also now a YouTuber. Go check out his channel. He's doing vlogs and stuff.
What about Antonio Giovinazzi?
No, I don't know.
Huh?
Giovinazzi I feel like Guan Yu Zhou is a bit of a Giovinazzi right now. He's kind of like
my actual answer.
Okay.
And I'm surprised Rob didn't say it. Bobby K. Robert Kubica.
Kubica.
That's a great pick.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The car accident is why he's not a championship. Like he was good. Like, apparently the Ferrari deal was basically inked. He was awful. It was going to happen. And that damned rally race, that accident. But yeah, like that's a good pull. Yeah, I think hands down in the modern era, the great what if is if Robert Kubica doesn't have that accident, does he end up being like the defining talent of the late 2000s into like the mid-teens? I think there's a decent chance he would have. Like him and man, we saw a bit in that Braun documentary. Him and Seb Vettel getting their wires crossed up.
Yeah.
Imagine if he'd been there for that entire era.
Right.
Yeah.
I think to Mike's question though, we don't. I think the way we all talk about F1 is like, I think obviously when you look at it over years, like Max or Lewis or Schumacher, like there's an obvious like greatness that's there in their consistency and mentality and able to like dial it in and all that sort of stuff. But like, I don't think like anything in life, there's a certain amount of luck or privilege or right time or whatever it was that contributed to it. So I don't necessarily look at other drivers who won championships or almost won championships and think that they're like infinitely worse. It feels like the baseball thing where it's like the worst player in MLB, right, is like the worst out of thousands of players, but they're still in the top 0.001% of best baseball players in the world. So it's hard to like compress it that way. Are they different from, would I put Rosberg or Massa or Barrichello or, whoever else, Button even, who won a championship but was very lucky? Would I put them in the same realm as Senna and Schumacher and Hamilton and what's looking increasingly like Max Verstappen? Probably not, but there's more data there. You've had years and years and years, and I don't think you have people fall through the cracks, although Bobby K is a really good call.
I don't know. I do think I think people fall through the cracks all the time. Like, I think it is just things do not, like, I think Hulkenberg's kind of a quintessential example of he was never in the right place at the right time. And to an extent, you'd always say, like, well, is there something about the guy that causes it to go that way? Maybe. But, like, you look at the teams that Hulkenberg drove for, there's not a mystery about, like, damn, why didn't the wins come? Like, he was always in those teams that were trying to break through into the next level. But when he showed up on the scene, he was a phenomenal talent and was like, driving beyond the limits of the cars he was driving, which made him a great pick, an invaluable person to pull for teams that needed someone to drive beyond a car with like a lower ceiling than they would otherwise want. And so that's how career ends up getting wasted. You end up like trying to justify yourself to a room full of school children at a Microsoft store. This is, I think it is, once a guy starts having success and becomes that guy within a team, they don't permit challengers in the territory. The team doesn't want to rock the boat. Nobody's like, let's let steel sharpen steel. Once you got a good thing going, it moves into a very protective mode.
Daniel Kvyat.
Look, man, he's looking forward to Christmas. He's going to open up another bottle of vodka and drink it by himself.
The fucking that virtual Christmas card to his fans.
I feel bad for him.
Next one.
Literally every single time I see a Kelly PK at a race, it's just like, Jesus. It's like some Game of Thrones nonsense. Yeah, Drew, you want to take this? Is this the last email?
Could be.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Billy writes, "Hey gents, love the pod. I live in Kansas City and have been an F1 fan since 2007, but the recent popularity boom thanks to the perfect intersection of the Drive to Survive show and the 2021 season World Drivers Championship title has been great in bringing fresh energy, and that is no different for Kansas City.
Whoa.
Pathlight Brewery in the KC suburb of Shawnee has been open since 2020 and shows every single race live, whether it's 6 a.m. for a European race or middle of the night for faraway races like Australia, Japan, and Las Vegas. At the height of 2021 and then the most of the 2022 season, the entire brewery was absolutely packed for every single race. So much so that a long line would form outside the brewery an hour and a half before each race as people waited to grab a choice table. Another thing I wanted to draw attention to, since my friends and I usually play at the brewery during races, is the Formula Day board game. By the way, that's spelled Formula and then the initial D.
Okay.
If you haven't heard of it, I don't blame you, since it is currently in its third edition and not exactly flying off the shelves. I won't bore you with the minute details of the rules, but I would say that for a tabletop rendition, it generally picks up on a lot of the mental aspects of taking on each track.
Mm.
The coolest part is that the out-of-print second edition had expansion packs that contained F1 tracks used roughly between 1988 and 2004.
Ooh.
So you can race at all your favorite tracks. I will include some pictures of my personal favorites. It is quite hard to compile all of these classic printings, but as you would expect with as strong an intersection of committed fans as F1 and board gamers, the online community has not only kept up with current tracks, but also made it so anyone can print off most of the out-of-print tracks as well. If you ever find yourselves in Kansas City, make your way to the Pathlight and find the table with the board game version of whatever F1 track is racing that weekend.
Damn. Maybe I want to go to Shawnee. I've been to Shawnee before.
Have you? Oh, of course.
A mutual friend of ours, Dan Reichert, had me to his hometown of Lawrence, Kansas.
He's been on the show.
Has he been on the show? Was he on the show?
Yeah, we did a talent swap where he watched an F1 race and I watched WrestleMania.
Wrestling? Oh no. God, I forgot about that. Yeah, he had me over for Thanksgiving one year and we hung out and we hit up all the places, man. Olathe, Lawrence, all the good spots. Shawnee. So
have y'all played Formula Day?
No, never.
I own a copy of it, but I have never played it. Is it good?
Surprisingly so. It's really nifty. I think the one thing I'll tell you is that you choose a gear and the gear determines how many, like you roll a different like number sided dice, like a D20 for like sixth gear. So like you could just go flying down the fucking track with that, and like first gear is like a D4. But the cool thing that they do is like your car has mechanical like reliability points that you move a little thing to track like how much damage effectively you've done to components. And so you can do things like I'm going to overcook it into this corner and I'm going to need to dump too much speed, and I won't be able to just do that by like downshifting one gear to like get a die roll that's going to be safe for me. So I am just going to downshift like 2 gears, and that's going to inflict a point of damage on my gearbox because it's like you're skipping a gear and like just beating the hell out of the transmission. And so now you force yourself to slow down. Maybe you still get unlucky, you roll too much. Now you're going too deep into the corner. Well, now you can take damage points on your brakes to like sort of stop yourself before you like go into another car. And so like you do that too often, your car falls apart. And so it's like it ends up being a really good race, a really good board game about like putting a lap together and trying to be smooth, but using board game mechanics. It's and it's like kind of feels like racing.
There's a picture of it here. It's there's one with like it's clearly Monaco. It's got like Raskas and Anthony.
That's the only one I've raced.
Oh really?
Yeah,
that's
Monaco's
cool.
the pack in.
That's good stuff. There you go. That's an appropriate one to end it on. A board game, maybe a Christmas present you could grab somebody. The Formula One fan in your life.
Well, thank you for all of the emails, shiftf1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. You can also hit us up on the socials using the links in the show notes. That's us around the internet. Do you want to take us around the world, Danny?
Do you have Around the World on?
Kind of.
Okay, let's race around the world. Yeah.
I will link to an Autosport article in the show notes called Motorsport Events to watch during the winter break and how to watch them.
Oh, cool.
So I'll just shout some out here. Starting on December 8th, the 24-hour series. Their next race is in Kuwait. There's a lot of golf stuff going on here. Okay. The golf 12 hours.
It's that time of year.
Yeah. The FIM Super Enduro World Championship, a hybrid motorcycle competition, meaning combining supercross and enduro on an indoor circuit.
Whoa.
Yeah. That's their next race is in Poland. So yeah, better be indoors.
Right.
We got the Stock Car Pro Series in Brazil.
Whoa.
The Dakar World Rally Championship. That's in Saudi Arabia this year, kicking off January 5th. The World Rally Championship. Their next race is in Monte Carlo in January 25th. And I believe that's the start of the season.
Okay.
Oh, we've also got the Asian Le Mans Series and Formula E, of course. Round 1, Mexico City E-Prix, January 13th, 2024.
On the streets.
There's even more. Super Sprint Motorsport New Zealand Championship. Le Tokay Enduro Pale, NASCAR. Maybe you've heard of it.
Oh my God.
February 4th.
I think I might camp out in Sonoma this year.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I might camp on the infield.
Oh, you have an RV?
We got an RV a couple months back. We got a little.
We're less than 2 months from the
trailer.
24.
Oh boy.
If you want to go camping,
I want to live that Logan Lucky life. That was Indianapolis, was it?
No, that was
Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
So.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
All right. Well, final thoughts. Oh.
Yeah, speaking of things to watch, the Michael Fassbender Road to Le Mans most recent thing is out. But in lieu of doing a series this year, they just went ahead and did a 90-minute movie. It is available on Porsche's YouTube channel right now. It is called Michael Fassbender, Road to Le Mans, the film. So it's a little bit confusing because this is the...
That feels like the end.
Fifth, I want to... It 100% feels like the end. I've watched it. I enjoyed it. I would say the opening 30 minutes is them just recapping the previous 4 seasons of the series, or maybe it's 3.
Ooh, no, I need 90 minutes of new content.
No. And then they show what happened this year and everything else, and I think they do a good job of wrapping it up. I enjoyed watching this one as well.
Do we need to do this?
Oh yeah.
I don't think we need to do this, do we? Maybe we don't. Whatever.
We did all the other ones.
Maybe. Oh yeah. Maybe that's the first one.
I need to check this box off. I need to check it off.
Yeah. I'll watch it again. I enjoyed watching it. It's
maybe that's what we do for January.
January. Yeah. Okay. So everyone else, then that's your homework for the holiday period. Is go check out the free movie.
Also, what a contrast with Gran Turismo.
What a pairing! What a pairing! Damn you,
and
gamers!
For a different vibe, here's Michael Fassbender.
All right, final thoughts on the 2023 season, Danny O'Dwyer.
Yeah, everything I've said, I guess, rambled on already. I enjoyed it. It wasn't the most exciting year. It was interesting in lots of ways, and we did have some exciting races, which was fun. I think for everyone's sake, I would love if the gap is closed to Red Bull next year. Just to I think everyone looks better if there's more competition there. And yeah, for the sake of the sport, I feel a little bit too. Kind of get away with one of them, maybe, or maybe 2 of them. But next year, if it ends up being that way again, I think might be in trouble. So I think, fingers crossed, a bit more competitive at the top, or just Red Bull, just take one for us. Like, just get Ricciardo in that seat, just spice it up, just like, you know what I mean? Like, if Checo's not going to fight Max, then get someone else in there and help us out. But yeah, I'll enjoy the break, but I'll be craving some circuit action come January.
All right, final thoughts, Rob.
The time has come for any team that's serious to take the fight to Red Bull. You're not going to beat Adrian Newey at building a better aero package under this rule system. You need a nitrous system. So who's going to have the will to try to slip that past the scrutineers?
Maybe Andretti would.
Yeah. Hey, don't look under that plank. Just, you don't need to know what's going on under there.
Yeah. Engineering director at Andretti, Vin Diesel.
Exactly. It's a family,
Well, thank you everyone for joining our family over this season. All our listeners, all of our patrons. We could not do the show without you. If you would like to support the show and get access to all of our bonus episodes, the ad-free version of the podcast, and the official Shift+F1 Discord, tons of stuff probably going on over the winter break, certainly in Simland. So check that out. Please do so over at patreon.com/shiftf1. Have a good race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next time.
Next time.
No.